Yo, what's up, wrestling fans? Welcome to Toddy D's Pro Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Brooklyn's own Toddy D. Hope everybody had a great week in the wrestling world and all the points in between. We are one night, ladies and gentlemen, away from WWE's Royal Rumble, the road to WrestleMania. And just for a moment, if I can just indulge myself with you guys, I'm going to channel my inner Savage. Oh yeah, the Royal Rumble, freak out. Let me tell you something, the Macho Man, Randy Savage. Oh yeah, I'm gonna be there, without a shadow of a doubt. All the other 29 guys in the Rumble are gonna feel the power of the madness. Oh yeah, dig it, Elizabeth, shine the belt. Oh yeah. If that were only true, that would be friggin' awesome if the Macho Man were back, but unfortunately, that's impossible. But, God rest Randy Savage. I'm sorry, just had to go there. So this week in wrestling was really cool. We had our road to the Royal Rumble. A lot of good back and forth action. You know, the saga is continuing with Rey Mysterio and Andrade. And from what I understand, my gremlins are telling me that Rey Mysterio is pushing to further the storyline and have a mask versus hair match. I don't know if it's going to be a potential WrestleMania match, but that's the rumblings backstage. I, for one, don't think it's really necessary at this point in time. No disrespect to Rey Mysterio, but we all know what he looks like. He unmasked in WCW many moons ago. That's, long before the new generation's time, but if you look it up and Google it, trust me, you'll see what he looks like. And in my opinion, after you see what Rey Mysterio looks like without a mask, you're going to want him to put it back on. But that's just my opinion. So Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman are still bragging about how Brock Lesnar is going to be, or should I say, Brock Lesnar is going to be the first guy in the Royal Rumble. And he's, obviously not him per se, but his advocate, Paul Heyman, is stating that not only will he be the first entrant into the Royal Rumble, ladies and gentlemen, but he will be the winner of the Rumble. Now, let's just say, for argument's sake, that Brock Lesnar does win the Rumble. Does that mean that the Beast Incarnate is going to take the night off of WrestleMania? Because we all know when you win the Rumble, you have your chance at either the WWE Heavyweight title or the Universal title. So with Brock Lesnar, say, winning the Rumble, does that mean the Beast takes a night off? First of all, we all know, and if you don't know by now, he's not going to win the Rumble. Now, my question is for everybody out there, who is going to toss over the top rope of Brock Lesnar? Who's going to dispose of the Beast Incarnate? There's a lot of talk with, surprises. Tyson Fury for one, Cain Velasquez for the other. And I've said this, millions of times on my podcast in the past, and I'm going to say it again. I really don't care. I'll go there. Cain Velasquez and Tyson Fury do not belong in the WWE, period. But if they're going to be in the WWE, they do not belong against high-profile guys like Brock Lesnar. And the reason why I say that is because you get these Johnny-come-latelys that come in, they're not wrestlers, and then they make the boys look bad. And not for nothing, you have guys in the WWE, and ladies for that matter, that are traveling the road 250 to 300 days out of the year, if not more. And then you get these guys come in for a paycheck, and they come and beat a main eventer. Even if he's a part-timer, he's still a WWE superstar, and I don't think it's right. Now, who do I personally want to see toss Brock Lesnar over the top rope? Well, there's a lot of superstar dream matches that I have. I, for one, would love to see Bobby Lashley go against Brock Lesnar. Maybe not a WrestleMania match, but I just want to see that rivalry because you got two guys that are very similar in builds, their physiques, their backgrounds, their MMA, their WWE, their training. They mirror each other. I think would be great. Another guy I'd like to see go up against Brock Lesnar would be Drew McIntyre. He's one of my favorites for the Rumble. I'm hoping he wins. Even if Randy Orton were to wrestle him again would be great, or Samoa Joe. How about even Kevin Owens? You have a pool of wrestlers that deserve to win that Rumble, other than these, superstars, rather actors that come in that want a shot at the Rumble just for the paycheck. They can come in, for the show, put them in the Rumble, make it interesting. I'm all for that. It brings in ratings. It brings people who are non-wrestling fans into the mix. That's all good and fine. But not for nothing, I don't want to see one of these, Johnny-come-latelys, as I refer to them as, be the winner of the Rumble, even worse, being a WWE champion. That would be horrible. I'd rather see Goldberg come back and win the title than one of these guys. But that's just me.
So, then tonight you have NXT pay-per-view. You have, Worlds are colliding between the NXT UK and, the NXT USA, I guess you want to call them. But this should be really good. I mean, Walter and his boys, and you got Adam Cole, Baby, and the rest of the Undisputed Era going on, one-on-one against these guys, faction versus faction, USA versus UK. I think it's going to be awesome. And I, for one, cannot wait to watch this pay-per-view tonight. It's a good little lead into the Royal Rumble. And getting back to the Royal Rumble, inconspicuous by his absence on WWE Backstage this past week on Tuesday was Booker T, the five-time WCW champion. Sucker. He wasn't there. Booker T's training. We've all seen the pics on Twitter. My man is jacked. He's getting back in shape. Well, actually, he never lost the shape he was in, but he's even in better shape now. I mean, I did back and biceps today. I'm feeling pretty damn good. I got the gun showing. I'm good. And speaking of which, I got my Superstar Billy Graham shirt on, which we're going to get into the Superstar in a little bit. But getting back to the Rumble and, Booker T, I, for one, I am hoping that Booker T comes into the Rumble and gets in the face of the Revival, and hopefully this will set up a WrestleMania moment of Harlem Heat versus the Revival. Man, oh man, I love the old school. I love that feeling. I think it would be awesome. And not to steal, Hunter and Stephanie's line, but it would be best for business. But getting to my shirt before I get to that, my heart goes out to the Johnson family, to the Rock and his family. We lost a great one this week, Soul Man Rocky Johnson, former WWE, then WWF Tag Team Champion with Tony Atlas, the Soul Patrol. They beat the Wild Samoans. That was a great match. I remember actually seeing that match. And if you go to Toddy D Wrestling, my Twitter page, you will see the program I have with Rocky Johnson and Magnificent Morocco on the front cover. It was either March or May. I forgot the month. It was 1983. And Johnson and Morocco on the front cover at the Garden. They wrestled for the IC title. Then champion was Magnificent Morocco. The time limit was until 11 o'clock at night. I'll never forget this. They actually wrestled until 11:02, which went over at the time they called it the curfew. Johnson won the match, but not the IC title. But if you go to my page at Toddy D Wrestling, you'll see pics of that program, still in mint condition, by the way. And if you look at the back cover, you have another person that's been in the news lately, Sergeant Slaughter's on the back cover. And we'll get to him in a bit, too. Why not? Again, my condolences to the Johnson family. I was a huge Rocky Johnson fan, Mark, whatever you want to call it. I don't care. Huge fan of his. Also a big fan of Dwayne, The Rock Johnson. So, my heart out to you guys, to your family. And we lost a great one this week. So getting to Rocky Johnson, this past Tuesday, they had a private, funeral for Rocky Johnson, and only a select few were invited. Two of them were WWE Chairman Vince McMahon and the first ever IC champion, Pat Patterson. So from what I've read and what I've heard, allegedly Pat Patterson was drunk off his ass, and, he spoke, of Rocky Johnson, and then he called him an SOB and some other profanity he used. And allegedly Vince McMahon was, I don't know if he was drunk also, but, he went into the whole Vince McMahon gimmick and the whole character. And, he spoke as if he were, Vince McMahon the day of the CEO of the WWE at the funeral. And supposedly the Johnson family, they weren't offended. They weren't mad at Vince McMahon's actions. As far as Pat Patterson's actions, I'm not sure. And getting to where this story broke, Superstar Billy Graham's mother-in-law, yes, I said mother-in-law, because his wife Valerie, I believe her name is, she was born her mother had her very young, and Superstar's wife's mom is still alive. So yes, Superstar Billy Graham's mother-in-law was at the funeral, and then whatever she had mentioned to Superstar Billy Graham on my shirt here, he, from what I understand, he just blew everything out of proportion and made it sound a lot worse than what it was, because from what I understand, the Johnson family isn't mad at Vince McMahon at all. There's talk about, Pat Patterson, they had to cut him off like they do at the award ceremonies when people are holding their award and they're thanking everybody and then the credits are rolling up in the background. Supposedly he went too long, meaning Patterson, and they had to get him off the stage. But also they were saying that Pat Patterson looks like he's got early stages, of being senile, because they said the way he was acting and speaking, was very odd. So I hope that's not the case, and Pat Patterson, get well soon, and hopefully it's not as bad as people are projecting it to be. Back to my program where I was talking about with Rocky Johnson and Don Morocco, Magnificent Morocco on the front cover. The back had Sergeant Slaughter, And I really didn't touch about this much in my last few episodes, and this being episode 9, by the way. Sergeant Slaughter for many years claimed to be a drill sergeant in the military, saying that he served from the 60s into the 70s, I believe it was. Now they're saying that Sergeant Slaughter lied and that he was never in the military. Now, I was always a big fan of Sergeant Slaughter. I wasn't a big cartoon fan of G.I. Joe, but as a kid in the 70s growing up, I had the big G.I. Joe action figures. So when he made it into G.I. Joe, I thought it was really cool. I think Slaughter's very, very patriotic. I always thought he was awesome. And, there are gimmicks in wrestling. I get it. But, you portray a character on TV as a gimmick, that's fine. But if you discuss that gimmick and character outside of wrestling and you're saying that it's the real deal, and if you're lying, that's not right, man. So I really hope that, there's an error somewhere, was in the military and he was a drill sergeant, because, if he weren't, that's pretty heartbreaking, because I think Sergeant's a great guy. I met him a couple of times, and the guy holds a lot of past high accolades. I mean, the boot camp matches with Iron Sheik were legendary. I was at the Garden for those. He had boot camp matches with Patterson back in the day. They were legendary. His feuds with, Volkov, Sheik, all these guys. I mean, he's one of the few guys ever, to actually pin Ultimate Warrior. He beat him in WrestleMania for the title. It was WrestleMania 7. He had great, legendary matches with Hulk Hogan when Slaughter turned heel, and he was with General Adnan and Iron Sheik, which he was known as Colonel Mustafa at the time. So, the whole thing, hopefully, this was, a mistake, and whatever records they looked into were incorrect, and Slaughter was actually in the military. Best of luck, Sarge. Hopefully, you're not lying, because then you're going to cut another promo asking for your country back. But AEW, they had a great cruise this week. I mean, MJF and his whole storyline with Cody Rhodes is, getting better and better. Big fan of MJF. I love the fact that, people say, oh, he's a great heel. Oh, he stays in character, blah, blah, blah. MJF is the man, hands down. He is who he is. Like it or not, accept it. This boy is the next generation of a Roddy Piper. Yes, I'm a huge mark for Roddy Piper. Always have, always will be. But MJF is the man. He's the shit. And, whether you like it or not, he is the man. And DDP, I'll tell you, man, I've done this yoga. It's awesome. And you can tell that it works. I mean, my man is 63, 64 years old, and he's still going strong. DDP's looking damn good in the ring. So, hopefully he'll have some more spots in the future. And they'll be sporadic, so they'll be even that much better. Lately, yours truly, Toddy D, I've been catching up with NWAPowerrr, and I have to say, I am a huge, huge fan of NWAPowerrr. The national treasure Nick Aldis, to me, is the epitome of what a wrestler should be. I think he is the greatest heavyweight champion today. He brought back class and style to the 10 pounds of gold in the NWA. I mean, when you think of the NWA, you think of Harley Race, you think of the Nature Boy Ric Flair, you think of all these great names who held that title with such prestige. And now, my main man, the national treasure, Nick Aldis, is carrying on that legacy to other levels. They brought back the television title, the NWA national title, tag titles. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, I'm catching up with everybody. James Storm is there. Aaron is there. You got a bunch of people. Ken Anderson. Big fan. I love this the question mark dude. I mean, I think he is really off the charts. Hilarious. Ricky Starks is cool. You got a bunch of guys there and ladies that are tremendous talents. And as most of you know, I used to be the associate producer in charge of public relations and promotions for NWA Cyberspace Wrestling, which we were out of Wayne, New Jersey. The late, great William Hawkins, a.k.a. Billy Firehawk, was the owner of that promotion. Diehard Derek Gordon, he was the director, he was the booker, he promoted everything. And yours truly, Brooklyn's own Toddy D, was the associate producer in charge of public relations and promotions. So Dave Marquez used to work with us. And recently I sent out a video because yours truly, Brooklyn's own Toddy D, I am looking to get into the NWA. By the way, huge fan of Eli Drake. I mean, he cut a promo a couple of weeks back saying that, people remind him of The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and even the Nature Boy Ric Flair. He has a lot of mannerisms like that, but I think he's awesome. He's great on the stick. And I think if yours truly, Brooklyn's own Toddy D, had the chance to be in the NWA to manage Eli Drake, I would not only take him to higher levels, but I would take him eventually to the NWA World Heavyweight title, the 10 pounds of gold, baby. That's right. You guessed it. Brooklyn's own Toddy D was a wrestler, but also a manager. I was a manager of champions, a master of the promo, and I'm telling you now, the guiding light, Toddy D, can manage not only Eli Drake, but anyone else, whoever's interested, man or woman in the NWA. Join my faction, join my stable, whatever you want to refer to it as. I'll be able to make it happen. You guys and girls will go to the next level with Brooklyn's Own in your corner. But enough of that. I just want to say that NWA Power is really awesome. I love the old school feel. I love the way they do it on the set live in front of a crowd in Atlanta. Brings me back to the old days of the 70s NWA. You know, growing up as a kid in Brooklyn, I only was privy to then WWF, now WWE, but I had a subscription to Pro Wrestling Illustrated that came every month all throughout the 80s, and I used to use my allowance when I was a kid. I get The Wrestler, Inside Wrestling, and any other wrestling magazine, so I can read NWA, I can read AWA, I can read UWF, I can read Georgia Championship Wrestling, Florida Wrestling, and all the indie, feds that were out there and all the other organizations, because, back then they had all the territories, and, before, Vince McMahon saturated the whole entire wrestling environment and made it just WWE. That's a whole other story for another time. But when I was a kid growing up, I could never watch those matches. So I would read about the Nature Boy. I would read about Harley Race, the Von Erichs. Everybody I would read about, I would just close my eyes and picture the match and see how the match went. And now, with the WWE Network, I get to watch it and relive everything. But watching NWA Power now on the YouTube series is friggin' awesome. I love it, and I'm looking forward to watching, more matches in the future. Unfortunately, I didn't catch the pay-per-view last night, but I did read the results. It looks like it was a hell of a show. I will definitely order the next one on Fight TV or whoever's going to be broadcasting it because, unfortunately, I had a prior commitment, so I couldn't watch it last night. But the next pay-per-view, I will be looking forward to watching, and I will be enjoying it because I do see a lot of cool things, and I see a lot of promise. NXT, is tonight. It should be awesome. I'm looking forward to it. And then tomorrow night is the Royal Rumble, and I'm really looking forward to that. The Royal Rumble has gone from 1988 until now. I'm not going to tell you my age in 1988 because I don't need you guys to bust out a calculator and know how old Brooklyn's Own is. But the whole thing was, I remember the first winner of the 1988 Royal Rumble was Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Ho! Shout out to you to Hacksaw, tough guy. And it's just gotten better as, time has progressed and moved on. And also, speaking of NXT, big congrats to Keith Lee becoming the North American Heavyweight Champion. I think this is just the beginning to many more years of Keith Lee being an awesome, solid performer. And, my man's going to climb the mountain. Here's a guy, Keith Lee, another guy that I would love to personally see bang heads with Brock Lesnar. Can you imagine tomorrow, after Brock Lesnar's music hits and he waits for entrant number 2 to come in? Who's number 2? Who's number 2, you ask? Can you imagine if it's Keith Lee? Talk about two bulls in a China store, man. That would be friggin' awesome. I would love to see that. Personally, for number 2, my list of guys, in no particular order, I'd like to see either Keith Lee be number 2, Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre, Kevin Owens, Samoa Joe. I just want it to be someone who's pretty big that can start off the Rumble with a holy shit moment. So that's what I'm hoping to see. So, I did my workout tonight. I did back and biceps. I just had a protein shake. It was awesome. And let me let you guys know, what I did tonight was I took a scoop, 5 grams of creatine with 24 grams of my whey protein, put that in a thing with 16 ounces of water, a handful of blueberries, and a banana. I blended that up for about 45 seconds, added some ice to it for another 15, and let me tell you something, folks. That was one of the greatest protein shakes that I've ever had. I'm pumped. I can't wait. I'm psyched. I'm going to have a little meal in a little bit, kick back for NXT, and then tomorrow night, the Royal Rumble. And then during the week, we'll see how, Raw pans out and AEW and, Smackdown. That's another thing I didn't get to talk about. Let's get into Smackdown real quick, by the way. I like the way they did the contract signing with The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, and Daniel Bryan. I am really looking forward to that match. It's going to be off the chart. Daniel Bryan can bring out the best in anyone. The guy is one of the most constant performers I've ever seen. And speaking of The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, I'm sure everybody saw this on social media. And, I understand Bray Wyatt and Daniel Bryan are in a heavyweight title match. I'm hoping they're also in the Rumble. Tell me a Rumble moment with Bray Wyatt, The Fiend, and the Boogeyman. The Boogeyman, I'm coming to get you. Can you imagine those two looking at each other in the ring? Two freaks of nature, or even add Kane to the mix. Maybe even a surprise Undertaker moment. Even a Taker doesn't make the Rumble. Can you imagine guys like Kane, The Fiend, and the Boogeyman, like a trio in the middle of the ring looking at each other? Talk about Battle of the Freaks. But that would be really cool. I'm looking forward to it either way. It's going to be a great weekend for pay-per-view for wrestling fans. Also, I want to shout out my condolences. The NYWC, they lost a wrestler on Tuesday. It was Crusher Dugan. You know, I had the pleasure of working with him as well as the rest of the NYWC locker room from 2003 to 2006 when I was with NWA Cyberspace Wrestling. You know, I was really close to that locker room, great bunch of guys and girls. So, you know, my heart goes out to the family of Crusher Dugan and the rest of the NYWC extended family. My condolences. Very sorry to hear of the passing. He was way too young. But that's why I always tell everybody in this world we live in, you know, count each day, you know, as a blessing because we don't know what tomorrow has to bring. And just always, you know, hug and kiss your loved ones at night before you go to bed. So with that being said, I think I'm going to put episode 9 to bed. I'm glad you guys have been watching Toddy D's Pro Wrestling Podcast. I really appreciate it. Just as a reminder, I'm at Toddy D Wrestling on Twitter. On YouTube, if you type in TODDY and a space with a letter D, Toddy D, that's my YouTube channel. So check it out. I really hope you guys subscribe. And check me out again at Toddy D Wrestling, as I mentioned on Twitter. If you guys and girls have any ideas on what you want to hear, what you want me to discuss, what's on your minds, if you have any rebuttals, please put your comments in on my podcast on Twitter. Good, bad, or indifferent. There's no such thing as a bad review. So whether good, bad, or indifferent, you look up Brooklyn's own Toddy D at Toddy D's Pro Wrestling Podcast at Toddy D Wrestling. Let me hear what you have to say. I want to hear everyone's opinions. I want to hear who's pissed off, who's not, who's telling me I'm letting, you know, back too much or I'm saying too much or whatever the hell it is. You let me know on my site and we'll discuss stuff. All right? So, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, boys and girls, as the road dog used to say, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I thank you for being on Toddy D's Pro Wrestling Podcast today to listen to it, and hopefully you'll watch it on YouTube as well as Toddy D Wrestling on Twitter. And as I mentioned, guys, enjoy the weekend, enjoy the show, and as always, Toddy D, that's me, will see each and every one of you guys and girls at ringside. Be well.